Yes, Helldorado Days, like all of the days of the year, are happy days in Las Vegas, Nevada. And the visitor will find a world of excitement in this western wonderland of daytime sun and nighttime fun. Las Vegas is rightly called the entertainment and fun capital of the world.
Las Vegas's Helldorado Days is a Western-themed celebration that served as a beacon of hope, a rallying cry, and a survivor against all odds.
It galvanizes the people together. It tries to bring the past into the present.
Sort of put us on the map.
It was sort of symbolic of what was Las Vegas all about at the time.
The celebration of Helldorado is a celebration of the history of Las Vegas and the spirit of the entrepreneurs and the people that made Las Vegas what it is today.
Helldorado Days' history is entwined with its city's past, and Las Vegas' story offers a tale nearly too tall to believe. It chronicles a magnetic destination that's continually molding itself into something new.
We're always evolutionarily changing. We're always moving things forward.
Las Vegas is a young, proud American city. Since its founding in 1905, it stood strong against the scorching desert sun and leaned confidently into the winds of change.
Talk about like the quintessential American city, and I think it's actually Las Vegas, because that's kind of what Americans do. We just reinvent ourselves all the time, and we're honest.
But we're still young enough where we're literally taking a pen and a piece of paper and charting our course to where we're moving forward with our community. How many times do you get a chance to do that in a major metropolitan city?
Long before Las Vegas, Nevada was a world-class destination, the city of many monikers was a tiny desert locale with great aspirations.
Las Vegas had to promote itself, and they did a very, very effective job.
The Chamber of Commerce in the late 1930s said, "We are going to market ourselves as the Old West."
At the time, Las Vegas was a settled railroad town, but was it ever part of the Wild West? Does Helldorado Days' historic frontier depiction accurately reflect the city's past? As with much of history, the facts are debatable.
Las Vegas was never a Western town, but that was part of the shtick. That was part of the sales effort, come out with the cowboy.
There were not necessarily cowboys, but they were pioneers. This was the frontier.
There was not cattle here, there was not buffalo here. This was not the Wild West.
If you think in terms of, well, there had to be Native Americans on the land, the Southern Paiutes were here, and the land was taken from them. But we don't see the kind of warfare that you associate with, say, Custer at Little Bighorn, or that sort of thing.
There was a feeling of the West here because there was horses everywhere and rodeo concept. There was a Western style living here.
America's Wild West past has filled the public's imagination and the pocketbooks of Hollywood bigwigs for ages.
We romanticize the Old West frequently, and a lot of it is based on the Western movies, that you grew up with.
Yeah. Well, I'll stop them.
In the movies, there were virtuous cowboys wearing white hats, corrupt cowboys wearing black hats, and the stories were straightforward. But America's real frontier past was far from simple.
It's very much a white approach to history, but the Old West still lingers for us as this idealized portrait.
There's the reality, and then there's Hollywood reality. They're two very different things.
Las Vegas saw great opportunity in the Old West fantasy.
And so even if Las Vegas was not a frontier town when the railroad was built through here in 1905, Las Vegas is happy to call itself one, if that's what you're looking for.
But how did the citizens of Las Vegas accomplish this feat? This incredible reinvention that celebrated Las Vegas's tenuous Western roots and continued frontier persona in the mid-30s?
And they came up with a special event. They came up with the idea to throw a big party and call it Helldorado.
With parades, rodeos, and dozens of other festivities taking place during this Mardi Gras of the West.
There were the two main elements of Helldorado: the parades, the old-timer parade, and different sorts of parades that there was over 4 days. And then there was the Helldorado Village, which took you back in time.
Helldorado is a combination of two words, Hell and El Dorado, and it was first used in the 1870s.
An Arizona newspaper wrote a story about a pioneer, a miner, a prospector that came out expecting to get his El Dorado. Instead, he got the heat of hell. And all of a sudden, no, Arizona's not El Dorado, it's Helldorado. And the name sort of caught on.
In 1929, Arizona created a Western-themed event celebrating its frontier roots and called it Helldorado Days. To the surprise of many folks, in 1935, Las Vegas assumed the name for its Wild West-inspired event, too. In 1935, the United States was engulfed in the Great Depression. Prohibition had ended 2 years earlier. World War II was on the horizon. Las Vegas was in a unique position. Nevada's relaxed marriage and divorce laws and repealed gambling ban were attracting visitors to the community referred to by some as Sin City.
In the mid-1930s, Las Vegas had gambling. It had prostitution. Say it quietly. It wasn't supposed to be happening, but of course it was. There's some entertainment. But even then, it was becoming a tourist town.
Las Vegas was also establishing itself as an upstanding community with a sense of permanence and pride. And despite some questionable influences, it was successful.
Las Vegas was mainly located as the downtown area. Fremont Street was very much the heart and soul of Las Vegas.
Fremont Street is the main thoroughfare in downtown Las Vegas. This great white way of the West is one of the most unusual streets in the world. It has a combination of...
Fremont Street was home to the Helldorado Days parade and some of its related activities for decades. 30 miles southeast of Fremont Street in Boulder City was an economic engine helping to drive Las Vegas's economy in the early 30s. It was the huge Boulder Dam, later the Hoover Dam construction project.
Las Vegans looked at the dam as something to provide jobs, permanence, continuity, prosperity.
In June 1935, the dam structure itself stood completed, 2.5 years in advance of the time originally designated.
In Las Vegas, change was on the horizon.
There were 7,000 people who built Hoover Dam, and they lived in Boulder City, but Vegas was the only place they could go and do anything or buy anything. So when that dam was over, everybody was panicked.
When that work was over in the early 30s, the leaders in Las Vegas looked around and said, we need to do something. We need to do something to continue and foster and support the growth of Las Vegas.
Las Vegas leaders were, I'd hesitate to say scared to death, but maybe that's accurate.
They weren't frightened, they weren't scared. They simply said, let's maximize that opportunity along with legalized gambling, and we'll be the Old West. Helldorado fit right into that perfectly. Helldorado was created by the Elks in 1935 for one reason and one reason only, to raise money for the Elks to build a lodge.
The purpose of Helldorado really at the outset, I think was more for tourism. And it is also a community building event from the outset.
In the days before television, and even radio was its infancy, these were events the whole town could gather and enjoy. And, each town probably had its own sense of tradition. Helldorado was ours.
Helldorado Days' origins are rooted in the determination of Las Vegas's Elks Lodge 1468 and the inspiration of event director Clyde Zerbe.
And they had been trying to hire him for 2 or 3 years to come to Las Vegas to create a fundraising drive.
He had an idea where, you had all these dam workers that were in town on the weekends to blow off steam. And you also had tourists that came to watch the dam being built, because at that point it was like the 8th wonder of the world. And so Clyde Zerbe got this idea, there's an opportunity here to make some money.
Clyde Zerbe's plan was to attract people to Las Vegas with thrills and the presentations of the unexpected. The result, the Old West-inspired Helldorado Village, which covered several acres and featured the Pay Street Trail. It was operated by the Las Vegas Elks Lodge 1468 and their family and friends. There was a saloon, gambling and dance halls featuring a Wild West show, the Bells of Helldorado, the Old Fiddlers, and various other amusements, along with the rather risque dancing girls. Las Vegas's Helldorado Days was heavily marketed both near and far. Clyde Zerbe assured the curious that the celebration would bring back all the aspects of early Nevada, the days prior to statehood. The event featured a beauty contest, a kiddies' day, and an old-timers night.
That would just be great. You could squint and go back in time.
Old Timers Night climaxed with a golden wedding, a ceremony recognizing a couple originally married in 1872. The one-time 4-day-long Helldorado Days was a grand affair that attracted an estimated 16,000 people and raised significant funds for the Las Vegas Elks Lodge number 1468.
It was so successful that 72 hours into the event, the Las Vegas Review-Journal published and printed said, we should do this annually. And it fit with what was going on in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas's Helldorado Days recognized America's popularized Wild West past. It was a history the city didn't necessarily share in, but residents were proud to celebrate and promote it just the same.
A group called the Las Vegas Horsemen's Association was formed by the former mayor, Ernie Cragen. And they suggested that they combine and there would be a rodeo that was part of the Helldorado Parade.
The Las Vegas Horsemen's Association had gained membership to the National Rodeo Association. Las Vegas's Elks Helldorado Days rodeo heads promised an official, professional show. It didn't disappoint.
And the rodeos were great fun, and you'd get rodeo stars from all around the West to come to do the rodeos.
But Las Vegas's Helldorado Days rodeo had issues from the get-go.
There was never a lot of money. A rodeo isn't a big money maker. I can't charge too much to go to it, and it costs a lot to put it on.
The 1936 Elks Helldorado Days also featured 3 impressive parades over 4 days: a kids' parade, a beauty parade, and an old-timers parade.
People like my dad and other movie stars and mounted posses and floats of various kinds would be there for that parade. It was a big parade.
All the merchants and everybody sponsored it and donated it, and all made their own floats, and things like that. And it was a wonderful thing for the town, for the families in the community.
The parades, rodeo, Old West Village, shops, and various attractions lured locals and tourists who traveled great distances to attend.
because there was nowhere else, when you look at the Four Corners region, where men could easily travel to go to a rodeo or could see the Wild West show.
Maytime is Helldorado time in Las Vegas. Residents and visitors alike go Western in celebration of the annual event.
People dressed in Western garb. The guys who ran the casinos, even if they were East Coast gambling professionals, they're going to be tipping their cap, howdy ma'am, and wearing Western outfits.
Visitors were enthralled, and proud residents bonded through the effort.
It was just a wonderful, wonderful way of Las Vegas coming together.
Everybody's got a beard.
One tradition was the popular and spirited Whiskerino contest. Back then, as now, bearded men are sometimes described as looking more rugged, a little more Old West than their clean-shaven counterparts. City barbers reportedly did great business designing the facial hair of area men.
Have a contest in about 5 or 6 different categories, and all of the contestants would get to drink free beer the night that the contestants were there, and everybody won trophies.
You weren't in Helldorado garb, or if the guys didn't have beards or mustaches, why, you would be thrown in jail.
No beard, he has no beard. Put him in the break. In you go. Wait a minute, Judge, I'm in a hurry. I have something to do.
My first roles were as the button chairman. We used to sell Helldorado buttons. The purpose of the button sales and the advanced sales was we had to put a deposit money down with the PRCA in order to hold the rodeo. And we would, by donating all the money that we raised the previous year, that was our money way of starting back out for the next year's Helldorado Days. We used to have a group of guys that were called the Kangaroo Cops, and we would go around on Friday evenings in the valley raiding bars and taverns, and a Helldorado button would throw you in jail.
The accused remained locked up until some kind soul bailed them out.
They called it a kangaroo court.
Kind of closed off Fremont Street, and my father, they always had him dressed as kind of a judge. So there'd be with tails and a tall hat.
But this was all part of the act, and it was fun.
It's really the Elks who are going to be the driving force behind Helldorado for a long time to come.
All of the money raised from Helldorado always went back into the community through various charitable organizations. I was very proud to be a part of that for over 50 years.
The Benevolent Protective Order of Elks is a powerful fraternal organization formed in the United States in 1868. It started out as a social club, but became the lifeblood of many American towns. In Las Vegas, the Elks 1468 had a significant role in forwarding early development.
One thing, starting a new town, why I think lodges were, everybody was anxious to join lodges, but so they get to meet new people.
One of the first things that my father did was to become a member of the Elks Lodge, Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks, 1468. That was a great passion of his.
United States Senator and former Nevada Governor Richard Bryan eventually joined the Elks 1468 too.
The Elks Lodge was not just a group of people who were highly educated. I mean, there were craftsmen, there were small business owners. But for people that were kind of looking to establish a niche in the community, the Elks Lodge was an organization to join.
But the Elks Lodge was the main thrust of any community activity that you wanted to partake of, and that's how we got started.
He was James Cashman Jr.'s father, James Big Jim Cashman. Big Jim committed himself to advancing transportation and development efforts in Nevada, especially in Las Vegas. He founded Cashman Equipment in 1931.
As far as I'm concerned, Big Jim Cashman was one of the makers of Las Vegas. He was willing to do anything.
It just was unbelievable, the
compassion and gentleness in that man.
They begged, borrowed, and stole everything they could get to build that thing. In fact, we had some property up in Lee Canyon. Dad did, along with a couple of partners. And they set a sawmill up there. Chopped down the trees and sawed them up for lumber to build that Helldorado village.
When they had the little old village, that was really, I think, sort of made it. There were dances every night in the village. They had a big dance hall. And it was just like a little village is what it was. They had little booths and little selling points, little stations. That it was a really fun week.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
1941 found the United States in dramatic circumstances. With the bombing of Pearl Harbor, World War II had landed at the nation's front door and in Las Vegas's backyard. The city quickly added Military Town to its repertoire of identities.
So we became part of the defense industry because of our location largely. And we also had the electricity from Boulder Dam.
From the switchyard, the lines travel out across the desert, bringing light to the homes and cities and power to the factories of Southwest.
The Las Vegas Army Airfield, now Nellis Air Force Base, and the basic magnesium plant near what would become the city of Henderson connected Las Vegas directly to the war effort. Thousands of civilian and uniformed employees came to the city to spend time and money during the war years.
Las Vegas was very involved in the war effort. There, of course, was rationing throughout Las Vegas. Students at Las Vegas High, some of them dropped out of school in like the 11th grade, join the war and go fight.
Wartime wasn't a time for festivities, and most celebratory events were canceled across the United States. The Elks Helldorado Days was allowed to carry on, though. Leaders of the city and state convinced the Office of War Production that the event was a valuable diversion to many U.S. troops and factory workers living in Las Vegas. Thousands of new and longtime Las Vegans and out-of-towners attended the Wild West-themed Helldorado Days during the war years.
All of a sudden, Helldorado becomes a patriotic event. And it grows and develops, and once a year, everybody likes to dress up as a cowboy and a cowgirl. So it was a troubling time, certainly, to minimize World War II, more than a troubling time, but it was a time that once a year you could celebrate and have fun.
The Elks Helldorado event in its city experienced significant growth during World War II. One area that was beginning to develop was what would soon become the Las Vegas Strip. The Western-themed El Rancho Vegas opened there in 1941, and one of the city of Las Vegas's first major resorts, the El Cortez, also opened in 1941. The area's gaming hub grew into another nickname, Glitter Gulch, a nod to the city's western past, brilliant present, and anticipated future. It was the image Las Vegas's Chamber of Commerce established and sold to the public in the 1940s. The 1943 Helldorado Days, featuring Western movie stars Roy Rogers, Trigger the Wonder Horse, and Tex Ritter, broke all previous attendance records. By that time, the event had entertained visitors and residents for nearly a decade, and also helped establish Las Vegas's growing community.
You're new to Las Vegas. How do I fit in the community? What do I do here? Oh, I enter the beard growing contest. I get my Western wear. It's part of building a community.
In 1944, one community builder, Maxwell Kelch, became president of the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce. Kelch was concerned about managing the challenging changes soon coming to Las Vegas. The end of World War II would inevitably impact the city's economy.
And my dad went out and he recruited a group of businessmen, and they called themselves the Live Wires.
In 1945, the Live Wires launched a very successful fundraising campaign called the Live Wire Fund. Group members contributed from 1% to 5% of their yearly gross receipts, specifically for the promotion of Las Vegas. The city's large resorts pledged to match what was raised up to $50,000.
What they did was hired the biggest ad agency in New York to promote Las Vegas. And boy, did that work. The Live Wires were pretty damn good.
The ad agency succeeded in convincing would-be tourists that Las Vegas was not Sin City, but rather a stunning resort community that maintained good old Western hospitality.
Post-World War II, when the United States was changing, the war's over, we can relax. People were buying cars and were traveling, and the hospitality had the word strip becoming part of the conversation post-World War II.
Helldorado Days was also part of the conversation. 1946 was a banner year for the celebration and its city.
The parade at the time was the biggest parade, special event of that type west of the Mississippi.
More than 50,000 people attended Helldorado Days in '46. Frank Sinatra came to town to open the festivities. Cowboy actor Roy Rogers and actress Gabby Hayes led the Helldorado Days parade that year. And the event was filmed for Rogers' movie Helldorado with one L because the Hayes Office of Purity in Movies said so. In 1947, the Las Vegas News Bureau was established by the Chamber of Commerce to help market the city. Maxwell Kelch had a hand in that.
He started the News Bureau, and this was the first use social media, because the News Bureau had photographers, and they'd go out to all the hotels and film ordinary people from the Midwest having fun in Vegas, wearing, sequin dresses and that other people didn't do at home. And they'd send a news release to their town. And then here's Martha eating breakfast with her husband. Hey, Bill, look. Sherry and her husband went to Vegas. Look, we're having fun. Let's us go. And it really built a clientele for our town. And it worked.
From downtown Las Vegas to the Strip, the valley continued stretching outward and upward in the late 40s. It also established deeper, stronger roots despite the endless evolution taking place above ground. In 1950, there were nearly 25,000 people living in Las Vegas. The city was a wedding mecca, and ironically, also the divorce capital of the world. Luxury hotel casinos erupted from the earth like neon desert flowers in springtime. The 50s are often considered Las Vegas's defining era.
I mean, in the early 50s, we were almost as big as the Rose Parade.
The hotels, especially in the 1950s, very much got into sponsoring floats for the Helldorado parade, usually the beauty parade. They could showcase their showgirls, they could showcase the theme of the hotel.
And so, yeah, the hotels were all involved. It was a fun event, and there were buffets and, called them chuck wagons in those days. All you could eat at a chuck wagon for $1 or whatever it was.
I don't remember ever not going to Helldorado because it was just something you look forward to.
It was a very big deal when we were young.
Mm-hmm.
They would block off Fremont Street, and they'd have Ferris wheels, and they would have pancake breakfast. They'd cook the pancakes on the street. They'd have jails and they had whiskerino contests.
To be able to go to a rodeo, how often did we get to go to a rodeo? Thank you, Helldorado.
Yep.
The Elks Lodge 1468 worked hard to keep the event relevant in a town that never stopped evolving.
You need more than just a couple of parades. And so the Elks and the community, Helldorado developed and changed over the years.
It became a struggle, though, to keep Helldorado Days' historic hometown feel while raising funds for both charity and profitability.
Even though the funding wound up going to fundamentally the Elks, but the Elks were part of the community. So that wasn't, nobody looked at the Elks as being the bad guys because they were getting most of the money. There were some questions raised as to why some of the local organizations like the Boy Scouts would have to pay a fee to the Elks to be part of the Helldorado village. So it wasn't negative, it was just questions were asked.
Helldorado Court, Kangaroo Court and Dance Hall. Step in there and see the beautiful dancing girls down at the dance hall at the Helldorado Village.
Las Vegas's commitment to creating an encompassing experience attracted many people hankering for America's storied Old West past. Throughout the 50s and 60s, Western movies and television programs fed the frontier flames in the U.S. Turns out, the Wild West invention portrayed on small screens, big screens, and in places like Las Vegas were much-needed distractions in 1950s America. The city of Las Vegas celebrated the half-century since its founding in 1955. That year, the United States was embroiled in both external and internal struggles. It was a time when the entire world needed some relief, a diversion, and Las Vegas provided it in a major way. Nearly 8 million people visited the area in '55. The dunes opened that year, becoming the 10th resort on the rapidly expanding Strip. Off the Strip, on Las Vegas's segregated west side of town, the area's first racially integrated hotel, the Moulin Rouge, opened in May of '55 and then quickly closed in October of that same year. Las Vegas, like the rest of the U.S., was struggling with issues related to race and civil rights.
When I was growing up as a kid, the country was still segregated, and as Las Vegas as well. So you were really pretty much divided. The black people and Mexicans lived on the west side.
There were African Americans in Las Vegas who said that Helldorado was one of the few times they could have anything approaching equality, or at least an openness to them being involved, because everybody was supposed to wear the Western garb.
It was just an activity that brought us all together for the same reason.
And the sad thing is that, Helldorado ends and back to segregation, back to the discrimination. It's not saying that Helldorado is Camelot, that one brief shining moment, but there is this feeling among some members of the African American community.
At the time, the Elks Lodge 1468 was a whites-only organization. Many community members were not welcome to join. The Elks Helldorado Days event suffered a significant setback in the late 50s. The Strip hotels that had contributed to the event for years began pulling back their support.
The Strip hotel people said, we're bringing people to downtown Las Vegas because that's where the rodeo and that's where the floats are and the parades are. We want to keep the people out on the Las Vegas Strip, so they stopped supporting it.
The hits kept coming for Helldorado Days in the early 60s. In 1961, Clark County Sheriff's Mounted Posse staged the Rodeo of the Stars, not far from the Strip. Competition for the Western entertainment-craving audience grew stiffer in Las Vegas. The year 1964 was extremely significant in American history.
My fellow Americans, I am about to sign into law the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
It was an important time in Las Vegas, too. In '64, the city had a population of 135,000, and it attracted 10 million visitors a year. The University of Nevada, Las Vegas celebrated its first commencement ceremony. The area grew into new impressive monikers: entertainment and gaming capital of the world. Despite the growing numbers of people visiting and living in Las Vegas, Helldorado Days began to falter.
The decline is basically part of the evolution of the area, if you stop and think about it. You have suburbs developing, Paradise and Winchester townships, and the Strip is growing. So more of the business is moving out there. More people are moving in that direction. You don't have quite the same central feeling on Fremont Street.
It was still very popular, but it didn't have that sense of community that it had in previous years.
Despite Helldorado Days' injuries in the late 1960s, it powered through.
The problem is we haven't really been able to bond with the newer people, and that's one of the big problems with our organization, period. They don't seem to be interested in the family-type organizations that the Elks are.
A lot of credit goes to the Elks, because the Elks have always consistently run, maybe not the parade, but really tried hard to make the rodeo work.
Tried all sorts of things. Carnival was a huge success out there. I mean, it made enough money to cover the expenses and to make money for the kids all by itself. So now we could make it to where the rodeo doesn't drag it down and take money away from it, at least break even. We decided to build a fence around the carnival so we could charge admission. And we told everybody, you either got to pay $2 to get in or buy a Helldorado button. And we sold thousands of Helldorado buttons that year. But it was another way of generating some more income.
As Helldorado Days expanded the carnival for profit, the celebration's historic and community ties were severed. And in an effort to regain the support of area resorts, the pressured Elks 1468 organization moved the rodeo out of its home in the city and onto the Strip in both 1969 and 1971. In 1976, the bicentennial of American independence drove a cultural wave of patriotism in the United States. There were 154,000 residents in the city of Las Vegas, and Clark County saw just under $850 million in gaming revenue that year. In Las Vegas, a quick strategic marketing shift and staunch civic support were needed to combat the competition. But it didn't come quickly enough. The city's evolution ground to a stop. Las Vegas had lost some of its luster. The city of many boastful names was experiencing an identity crisis. So too was Helldorado Days.
People riding horses and claiming to be Western? It doesn't quite fit with what Las Vegas is claiming to be by that time. And I think it's harder to get the city in on the action.
In 1985, Las Vegas's population was under 200,000. That number would nearly double within the next decade to 370,000 people. And Helldorado Days had reached middle age.
The National Finals Rodeo just overtook everything, and that became a significant event in the community, and it is today. But it could have been both. They could have kept them together and made the highlight of Helldorado Days the NFR championship.
By the 90s, you think of the growth of Las Vegas. Downtown having gone through a real downturn. They get rid of the depot. There's no longer train service. You can bypass downtown with the interstate highway. The city is talking about, well, how do we get people back downtown?
When I was elected, the downtown was really lethargic. It was in a state of rubble. People were leaving it like rats leaving a sinking ship. And I thought it was important to revitalize it.
I was offered a job to be a part of the opening,
a group of people that formed and developed everything on Fremont Street.
Well, somebody got the bright idea that what Fremont Street really needed was a canopy and to become a walking pedestrian mall.
They asked us to help close Fremont Street. It was the last time people were allowed to drive down that main drag.
The $70 million Fremont Street experience lures people from around the world to downtown Las Vegas with a spectacular show of light and sound. But the Fremont Street experience didn't help the Elks Helldorado Days in the 90s. The new attraction ousted the historic parade. Its last roll down Fremont Street was in 1994. By this time, Helldorado Days was stretched to a brittle shell of its former self.
But each year, there would be less and less value, per se, to the Helldorado, to the city of Las Vegas, until the 90s, when it just didn't work anymore.
The town was getting too big, and people were too spread out, and they had other interests. It was very sad.
And like a chess piece, Helldorado Days moved from place to place in hopes of rediscovering success in the 90s. In 1995, a perfect storm formed over the Helldorado Days event.
Lo and behold, it starts Helldorado Days, and 50-mile-an-hour winds come down through the air and start toppling the carnival and messed up the rodeo, and so they had a bad year that year.
And we had 2 years of hellacious weather, primarily wind. Attendance was way down, and we actually lost money for 2 years.
And that's when the Elks decided, we're not taking a loser. We're not going to lose any money on this. We're going to quit Helldorado. And it went away.
Since 1935, the Helldorado Days under Elks leadership had beaten the odds and survived despite city growth, changing tastes, changing locations, and loss of community connection. It survived until it just couldn't anymore.
We just were not able to get it going again when we tried to do it ourselves. We just weren't able to.
The days of Whiskerino contests, kangaroo court, and fantastic parade floats had come to an end.
When it ended in 1997, it was a sad thing, I think, for the whole community.
I think it was a big void that was missing. For someone born and raised here.
I look back on those days with a lot of fond memories and a lot of fun, actually, as a kid.
Let me just say, it's kind of like parting the curtains of nostalgia. It brought back a lot of pleasant experiences in my life, and Helldorado was a big part of it.
You know, it was a big part of our community, but our community changes and everything changes, and sometimes things are appropriately canceled or closed. And, you know, one of my favorite sayings is, even this shall pass away. And, you know, so it did for a while.
Helldorado, Mayor Goodman said, this is what kept Las Vegas together. This is the one event that we absolutely have to bring back during the Centennial year.
To me, so many people come from elsewhere, and they don't really have a sense of community when they arrive here in Las Vegas. Helldorado is a galvanizing way to get people to be unified, to feel as though they're part of something very, very great, the history of Las Vegas, and then they'll feel like real Las Vegans, and there's nothing better than that.
A committee was formed in early 2000 to decide how to celebrate the city's very meaningful milestone. The committee landed on a few things: a free concert, a world record-breaking birthday cake, entering a float into the Tournament of Roses parade, and marrying 100 couples simultaneously. But what about the Centennial Celebrations finale? It had to be something really special.
Somebody said, well, what about Helldorado? Some people didn't know what Helldorado was. And then when we talked about Helldorado, all of a sudden, oh, that's a good idea. And so it came from a brainstorming session, morphed into something that was on the checklist to do.
The planning group voted unanimously to bring back the Helldorado Days parade one last time for the Centennial Celebration's final act.
And in 2004, I went to the city of Las Vegas to help plan all of the events, the year-long events for the city of Las Vegas. How often do you have an opportunity to plan your city's 100-year celebration?
Mayor Oscar Goodman's mission was to present the year's Centennial celebration activities to the public free of charge. So finding funding was a mighty big task. That's when area businesses and civic leaders stepped up to the plate.
Every time somebody bought that license plate, the city of Las Vegas, through the Centennial Commission, gets a piece of that money.
The Las Vegas Centennial Commission is a group of appointed citizens who oversee the distribution of Centennial Plate funds.
It's to preserve the history of Las Vegas. And so people come to us with various projects. It generates quite a bit of money each year.
The commission funds weren't the only ones driving the city centennial celebration in 2005.
We raised all the money and didn't have any taxpayer expense as a result of it.
The planning and execution of the year-long community celebration bonded Las Vegas citizens, just as Helldorado Days had for decades. Event planners upped the Helldorado Days factor in a big way by creating a new Western-themed village for the Centennial celebration.
So this time we were down there on Fremont Street, and I'm trying to find some place to put this old Western town, and I didn't want to build it like it used to look. I wanted to make it look nice. Put it all together, and take it all apart. And then we took it down to Fremont Street.
The Western Village took folks back in time, just as it had for many years. Next, it was time to build a birthday cake in typical Las Vegas style.
Who knows how to build the world's largest birthday cake? I mean, there's no manual out there that says, this is what you do. We were very lucky. We partnered with Sara Lee Cakes. They shipped to us over 30,000 individually wrapped sheet cakes.
Wait, when you're trying to get the world record from Guinness, you got to make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's. So everything had to be weighed out and planned out. It had to be exact.
The final world record-breaking product weighed 130,000 pounds, measured 102 feet long, 52 feet wide, and 20 inches high.
And hundreds lined up for a slice of cake.
Brings the community together, it keeps them tight, it keeps them, we're all interested in the same thing about Las Vegas, it flourishing, continue to flourishing. It just makes it a really nice event for us.
Mayor Goodman, along with Lieutenant Governor Lorraine Hunt, Congresswoman Shelley Berkeley, entertainer Clint Holmes, and many other dignitaries lined up for the official cake cutting, using machetes, a saw, and the biggest birthday candles you've ever seen.
On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Las Vegas.
Esther and her team were also tackling the mass wedding ceremony.
We married 100 couples. We partnered with radio stations across the nation, and we partnered with Southwest Airlines. We partnered with the Golden Nugget Hotel. That was our host hotel. Then we walked 100 couples down to the courthouse to get their marriage licenses.
I now pronounce you and present you as, here it comes, ladies and gentlemen, husband and wife.
Every couple that gets married in Las Vegas has become a part of our history, and you have become a part of our family.
We had over 211 entries in the Helldorado Parade that year. There was well over 80,000 people that came out and watched it. It was one of the biggest parades. Every high school band in Las Vegas participated.
What a nice way to end off the Centennial with a parade that was revived, a parade that basically had been in existence for years. It was part of the fabric of the community. Many of the children who went to school actually were in the parade. Many of the showgirls who were performing on the strip, they were part of the parade, and it was just a way for everybody to get together and say, geez.
With the couples married, a bunch of birthday cake consumed, and the Helldorado Days parade reaching its end, the city's year-long Centennial celebration came to a close.
We have just finished our 100th birthday, our Centennial year, where we had the greatest birthday party of any city in the history of the world.
So when I look back or when I speak about what we did, it was, to say it was an epic year just doesn't, it was bigger than that.
The 2005 Helldorado Days parade was meant to be a triumphant one-time affair, but staunch supporters pushed hard for it to continue.
And so when the Elks said, we think we can make this a permanent thing of Las Vegas, give us some startup money, the Centennial Commission, which was the funding agency for the Centennial event, said yes. It was a great idea, but taking great ideas and making them into reality, sometimes there's a big gap.
The Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial contributed more than $1 million to fund the Elks Helldorado Days, but after a decade of support, the Elks could not establish it as a self-funding event. 2016 was the last year the Commission financed Helldorado Days' Rodeo. The Helldorado Days dream wouldn't die, though. Portions of the event continued with support from the city of Las Vegas. The celebration faced significant challenges during the years it was held. There were issues related to funding, location, leadership, the COVID epidemic, and even the Helldorado Days name itself, which was temporarily changed in an effort to adapt and keep the event going.
The city has the right to that name in perpetuity, and we're so excited to have it back.
The Las Vegas Elks Lodge 1468 organization has served its community for more than 100 years.
And we're still extremely involved with our commitment to veterans and feeding the homeless, and especially handicapped children. And so we do pretty stay involved still, although there's not that many of us anymore, but we hope to grow once we get a new location. We sold ours a year ago, so it became a school.
As time passes, the value in recalling and recording the event's history increases.
But I think it's helpful for understanding the community's history. You're younger or you just moved here, what's Las Vegas about? And you can say, all right, I know that we have these mega resorts on the Strip and increasingly downtown. And we have gambling and entertainment and things related to tourism and big concerts or concert events. All right, what was going on before? What can I learn about the city? Helldorado is a good point from which to do that because it gets you into who were the leaders? Who were the people who were ignored? Where was it happening? Why was it happening? How does it fit with the image of Las Vegas and the image that a Helldorado event itself projects?
Helldorado Days represents where Las Vegas came from, and the city and its celebration grew up inexplicably linked. Documenting the event's past recognizes the expansion and evolution of a great American city. But will it ever stop growing? What's left of old Las Vegas?
But up until recently, the idea was develop. And a lot of times that development meant pushing aside historic sites because we want to develop. Now elected officials are thinking a little bit more about, wait a minute, where do we come from, what happened, all of these things, and where are we going?
Las Vegas was founded in 1905, and since then the city never looked back. It raced forward, determined to become a tourist town. Over the years, Las Vegas promoters successfully bridged the gap between what people wanted and what they needed, and the promoters convinced a whole lot of folks that what they needed was to visit Las Vegas. Las Vegas and its Helldorado Days celebration are both works in progress. The road to Helldorado Days stretches on toward a brilliant horizon, an unknown future, with determination and optimism.